Hey YouTube, welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video with Mr. Terry, as I continue my search for historical knowledge here on the internet. Alright, it's the time of the season. I am posting this video. Today is Thanksgiving 2019, and I thought this would be a good time to do something current in a way, and that is try to look up something about the first Thanksgiving. I mean, I think everyone kind of knows that some of the classic story of the first Thanksgiving is nothing like what had actually happened. But let's just see a little bit about what is supposed to have happened, at least from the source of this video. So I went through and tried to find, and just from an initial search, the history of Thanksgiving. That's what I searched for, and what are some of the popular videos. And this one popped up: the first Thanksgiving, what really happened. And I think we'll go ahead and check this out. Haven't seen this, obviously, but if you like this video, down in the description will be a link to the original. Please do me a favor and head over there after you're done watching this and give them a like and subscribe if you like that. And if you like what we're doing here, history teacher, reacting to history videos on the internet, then love to have you as a subscriber as well. And definitely, if you'd like to know when live streams are, then enable those notifications as well. That's really useful. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The first Thanksgiving.
American schools generally teach a conventional story about the meeting of pilgrims and Indians that finished with an amazing dinner. The end. But there's more to the tale. This video will explain the events around the first Thanksgiving and how it's not the image ingrained in tradition.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I remember if I was ever taught like the real first Thanksgiving. I mean, I've heard of the story, but I'm trying to remember if, I mean, obviously it would have been really young, really early elementary age, if anything, and to think what was actually taught to me, and I don't know if that ever happened. Do any of you remember being taught about the first Thanksgiving, or what it was exactly like? Or I'm having a hard time even remember being taught it. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, but I don't know. Include your thoughts. What did you actually learn about it? If anything, what did you learn?
At the start of the 17th century, southern New England was home to a variety of busy communities within several confederations. These were the people of the first light, and they called their home the Dawnland. Political leaders...
Did that kid just boot the ball into the ocean?
These were the people of the first light, and they called their home the Dawnland.
What a jerk! Do you see that kid? He's like, hey... This kid goes over to him and like, hey, did you see my ball anywhere? I was playing with that. Yeah, I found it. How about you go get it in the ocean? Wow. Is that part of the first Thanksgiving?
Political leaders were known as sachems and had been trading with Europeans for over 100 years before the Pilgrims. Relations soured only after deceitful Europeans kidnapped locals to sell as slaves.
Going back to some of these settlements. So people had been, Europeans had been coming in and out of the Americas, in North America, since the 1500s, right? You don't get some of the first permanent colonies until a little bit later, especially with English colonies. The French among the first of kind of what would be North America around the Canadian region, and the English, specifically, their first permanent one was Jamestown in Virginia, although there were earlier attempts that had failed, like Roanoke, if you know about that. But up here in North, it was the Massachusetts Bay Colony. They come up there, and so you see that happen. Plus, you hear about like the Puritans, how some of those people that were coming up there were looking for economic benefits, but also, of course, religious freedoms or whatever, people that wanted to worship free from the what was going on in England with Anglicanism, and really just even go back to the Protestant Reformation. So, but yeah, it was surprising to some of these. I know some of these people, some of these more permanent ones that came over later in the later 1600s, that there were Native Americans that actually spoke English, which blew them away. They didn't know that had happened, but that's because there had been people coming in and out of North America, English-speaking people, and yeah, when they come, they were like, wow. That's amazing, and that really, as you can imagine, helped a lot of things as you were able to communicate early on in some of these more northern colonies.
Permanent European settlement was impossible due to the already high population of native occupants. But in 1616, tradesmen introduced a disease to the Dawnland, whose inhabitants died in droves from a lack of immunity.
That's the common story in the entire Western Hemisphere, right? The immunity to germs that cause diseases dates back centuries and centuries in Europe, and a lot of that was because of the interaction with animals. A lot of the big killers that have from pandemics throughout history often came from livestock animals, like cows and pigs, and those were two animals that did not exist in the Americas. So they never lived in the proximity to a lot of these animals, unlike the Europeans that did, so they had immunity to germs. And then when these germs were brought over by the Europeans, it just famished the Native Americans, with populations losing as many as 90% of their populations, which was total travesty on that part.
3 years, up to 90% were wiped out in several confederations, including the Wampanoag. Their head sachem, Massasoit, was aware of how close they were to being subjugated by their unafflicted enemy, the Narragansett. He was determined to save his people from such a fate. This was the political world the Pilgrims were about to enter. The Pilgrims were not called Pilgrims by their contemporaries. They were known as Separatists, a branch of the English Puritans. King James hated Puritans and began persecuting them in 1604, so the Separatists fled to Holland, where they were free to worship. But because they feared losing their national and communal identity, the congregation wanted a new place to plant their church. They decided on America and asked King James for a patent that would grant them rights to build a colony. They planned to make a profit catching fish to pay off the debts to their investors.
I help you, you help me.
Mayflower set sail on September 6th. 2 months later, Cape Cod was spotted.
Let's look at these stats real quick. So the Mayflower, 102 passengers, 74 male, 28 female, 49 were saints from the Separatist congregation. Yeah, so a lot of them didn't like, I guess, some of the belief structures and just the way that the Church of England was organized. Now, go back to the Anglican Church or Church of England, you go back to Henry VIII right there for that, which wouldn't have been that long ago, before. There's a couple generations before. And there was a lot of religious turmoil throughout the 15 and 1600s in England based off of that. Different monarchs had different policies about religion, which it was like, all right, we're going to be more of a Protestant, we're going to be more of a Catholic, and it created new denominations and made, again, a lot of turmoil there. All right, anyways, 53 were strangers, servants, and recruits of Thomas Weston, merchant of London, merchants, adventurers, the investors. Okay.
And 16 men were sent ashore to inspect the area. Unfortunately, the settlers didn't know how to fish, and food was running out. They resorted to stealing from graves, homes, and storage pits to keep everyone alive.
One of the biggest criticisms that English colonists got, going back to Jamestown and even like some of the other failed places like Roanoke, was that these people were not survivalists. They did not know how to survive in these areas, and nearly killed themselves from either starvation, exposure. They didn't know how to do this. These were people that were, again, they're primarily for business reasons. You know, they would show up with toxicology tests so they could find gold rather than basic survival equipment, thinking it would just be easy to just show up and it would be easy. And of course, the climate was not made well for that. Didn't matter where you were, if it was Virginia, more in the south, or in the Massachusetts area up north. They were completely ill prepared, and resorted to having to steal and definitely use the Native Americans, whether it was from a peaceful negotiation or from stealing from them. They would not have survived. And you probably wouldn't get these colonies, at least at the time they would have, anyways. Meaning a very different history for North America, doesn't it?
Then came their first hostile encounter with natives, but no one was killed. On December 12th, they reached New Plymouth. They did not land on any specific rock, but folklore insists they did.
Yeah.
Construction began in January. Whatever. By winter's end, 44 settlers would be dead from bad conditions. In March, they were surprised.
So if that's... Hold on.
Settlers would be dead from bad conditions.
So 44. So does that mean of the Mayflower people, which was just over 100, so nearly half? Lack of shelter. Yep. So freezing, scurvy, lack of vitamin C, conditions living on board the Mayflower. Okay.
In March, they were surprised when a man named Samoset walked into New Plymouth, greeting them
Speaking
in English.
Yep.
He told them they were building on top of a village called Patuxet, whose residents had all died from the recent epidemic. It belonged to the Wampanoag, and their chief, Massasoit, was watching them. The settlers were eager to trade, so 5 days later, Samoset returned with furs and companions, including Squanto. Known famously as Squanto, he had come to tell them in perfect English that Massasoit had arrived. After years of dealing with Englishmen, the Sachem did not trust the newcomers. Edward Winslow was sent to be a hostage and declared the settlers' peaceful intentions. Satisfied, Massasoit walked into New Plymouth and was
you gotta understand that all the bargaining chips are with the Native Americans here. They know how to survive. They're fine. I mean, the fate of these Englishmen is completely in the hands of these natives, right? Completely in the hands. So they're trying to, I guess, show some humility there because they need them to save their butts.
Legally greeted by the governor. A peace treaty was created, ensuring mutual protection if attacked by enemies. With the help of Squanto, New Plymouth settlers began to fare better. He taught them how to grow crops and was absolutely vital as an interpreter. To the separatists, he was a gift from God. But in fact, Squanto had been kidnapped from Patuxet in 1614 and shipped to Spain to be sold into slavery. He ended up in London at the home of a merchant who taught him English and arranged for Squanto's return to the Dawnland in 1619. But Patuxet was now gone, wiped away by the epidemic. Massasoit took him in with suspicion because of his years abroad, but needed a translator to parley with the newcomers. He eventually sent his warrior Hobamok to live among the settlers and keep an eye on Squanto. By fall, the settlers had a bountiful harvest and a feast was held to celebrate. Massasoit showed up with 90 warriors and 5 deer for the meal. For 3 days, the English and Wampanoag ate and entertained one another. This was the famous first Thanksgiving children learn about in school. However, the word Thanksgiving would not have been used by these settlers to denote a harvest feast.
Sure.
For Puritans, a day of Thanksgiving was a day of fasting while giving thanks to God in prayer.
That's like the exact opposite now, right? Time of fasting. No, it's when we completely gorge. Right? The first actual meaning of it that's fascinating. Now it's like the most American thing possible. Gorge yourself and sit around, right?
But the story of Pilgrims and Indians does not end here. During New Plymouth's first year, Squanto had been up to something. Realizing
I have a feeling this might end poorly. Let's see.
his substantial power as the only English speaker of his people, he conceived a plan to overthrow Massasoit. He persuaded locals he could command the English to make war or peace at his will. Hobamok was suspicious of Squanto and warned Governor Bradford. Soon enough, they discovered Squanto's plot and informed Massasoit, who was furious. He demanded Squanto be handed over for a swift execution. Bradford refused. The interpreter was too valuable to give up. But according to the treaty, Squanto...
That's going to make things tumultuous. Right? You got this traitor. Now, did they really say, though, why Squanto was against the Massasoit? Like, they had taken him in. Was I oblivious to a little bit to that? Anyway. What do we got here? They're going to make a treaty here. That neither Massasoit nor any of his should injure or do hurt to any of our people. And if any of this did hurt to any of ours, he should send the offender that we might punish him. That if any of our tools were taken away when our people were at work, he should cause them to be restored. And if ours did any harm to his, he would do the like to them. If any did unjustly war against him, he would aid him, and if any did war against us, he should aid us. He should send to his neighbor confederates to certify them of this, that they might not wrong us, but might be likewise comprised in the conditions of peace, that when their men came to us, they should leave their bows and arrows behind them, as they should do our pieces when we came to them. Lastly, that doing thus, King James would esteem of him as his friend and ally.
Squanto's life belonged in the hands of his Sachem. Bradford finally conceded. He was about to hand over Squanto when an unidentified ship appeared. The alarm it caused delayed Bradford and worried Massasoit's envoys. Angered and impatient, they left. The ship carried 60 Englishmen planning to build a colony near Boston. They abused the Massachusetts locals, initiating a conspiracy to kill the colonists. Warned about the plot, New Plymouth's leaders launched a preemptive strike to save their impudent countrymen. It bought peace for a time. In that time, more Puritan settlers arrived, soon outnumbering the natives. And while the Pilgrims' Treaty with Massasoit lasted until the Sachem's death, other Puritans were not concerned with such alliances. Their fanatic religious principles ensured no peace between the two cultures could last. To Puritans, Native Americans were the other, wild, savage, godless. With such an ideology, the outcome was inevitable. If they did not convert to Christianity and surrender their cultural identity, they had to be eliminated. The first Thanksgiving was a brief moment of harmony between two worlds, but sadly it was short-lived. The capitalist opportunities the Dawnland presented, combined with zealous puritanical beliefs, were incentive enough to wipe away the native inhabitants. There is nothing wrong with sharing a feast of thanks with loved ones, but remember the true events that started the holiday, and not the fairy tale.
Sure. So we see there's definitely truth to the story, that there was actually basically a peaceful meeting of the two sides, but before and after it, there was issues, right, and violent ones at that. But yeah, it looks like there was some of that. There was peaceful meeting, but yeah, it ends poorly, of course. I mean, you need to know what the actual Thanksgiving story was like to know what the fate of the Native Americans in the region would be, and I guess the fate of Native Americans on the continent, just in general there. But anyways, I really like that. Great job by the producers. I love the animations and the art style and stuff. That was great and good little information, and that was great. So definitely I would recommend go down to the description, give them a like and subscribe. Make sure you tell them that you like it too. But anyways, a conversation I guess you guys could get going down there if you'd like is, do you actually remember being taught about the first Thanksgiving as a young child? And if so, what was it? How different was it? Is it just the meal, that they had? But was it also, prefaced with some of the issues that the English colonists and the Native Americans had as well? Interested, I guess, to know what experiences everybody has kind of had for that. And of course, things are definitely changing too. I'm sure just in my age, it's going to be different to the generation older than me, and then maybe even different for the generation younger than me, right? Because that's kind of how history ends up getting taught, is sometimes a little bit differently through the lenses of whatever information is out there, and whatever the societal values are, of course, at some time, and what the purpose is, whatever that current generation feels is the purpose of the education of a specific subject. All right, with that, just a few plugs on the way out. If you like this video and you have not subbed to me, I'd love to have you around. Just if you're new to my channel, I'm a history teacher and love to watch history videos on YouTube. Add anything I can, but try to increase my knowledge and just further my interest in history that way. We also have a great history community behind this channel as well. If you have not joined our Discord server, we have over 4,000 members that you can join the server and get involved in all kinds of historical discussions with a lot of historical minded people as well. And that would be fantastic. Also, if you'd like to support the channel another way, you can join our Patreon. Patreon, there'll be a link down below, allows you the ability to vote in polls for videos that I kind of rush into this channel, and that's one way you can support the channel. You also get Discord benefits too if you join at certain levels. Anyway, let's go ahead and end here. If you are celebrating Thanksgiving today or whenever you ever see this, happy Thanksgiving to you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.